Welcome back. So we're going to talk about the goals for this week. Last week I had to go through something really quickly that I wanted to spend more time on, so we're going to revisit it. And so we're going to talk about the ethics in creative nonfiction. I'll go through it quickly. I went through it too quickly last week. I don't think I got to say what I wanted to say. Then we're going to talk about using note-taking methods. Kind of mentioned some of those before. We're going to understand basic structure for a creative nonfiction piece, understand how to use and create an outline, have a sense of how to transform notes into a piece. So once you have all these notes, how can you actually use them to organize and write something? All right, so here are the complications of creative nonfiction, which is the ethics. So one thing to keep in mind is that unless you're recording with video or audio exactly what's happening, the reality is going to be different than what actually happened because it's going through your perception, which is a good thing because you're trying to be literary about it, but it also means that other people might remember things differently. So you have to be prepared that people won't like what you say, or that they'll say it wasn't true, because they remember something differently. Even if what you wrote was the actual true thing. If someone says something, you write it down, put it in a piece, they say they didn't say it, either they're lying or they really just don't remember. It's something you have to be prepared for. And you have to be prepared also for the idea that maybe you wrote something that wasn't true. All right. Combining events and people. Very often in creative nonfiction, people will, writers will combine different people into one character because it's just easier. If somebody is a mentor or a teacher in a book, they might have influences of 2 or 3 teachers that came from real life. But for the sake of a literary piece, having that many characters is too much. It'll be too complicated. Maybe thematically it wouldn't work. So a lot of times people combine several people into one character. Same with events. If you have an experience 2 different times, let's say you go to a rock concert, a music concert. One time you see this band and you get to meet them, and another time the music is really great. It really means a lot to you personally. A lot of times people will just combine them. So again, this is creating a different reality. But it's something that's done, and since you're writing something that's literary, it's okay. Changing timelines. Again, when something happened can change, what order it happened in. You know, if something happened to you when you were 5 years old, and then something else happened to you when you were 7 years old, and they're both thematically linked, you might have it happen at the same time, just because it makes more sense as a story. And you don't, because you're doing something literary, people understand that you are slightly changing things, so it's easier to digest, easier to understand. There's no reason to spend a long time explaining something that's really complicated and thematically doesn't change your piece if you have to be really, really sure that what you're writing is exactly true, exactly as it happened. You're not reporting. You're writing something literary. All right, I'll go here. Possible backlash. Backlash is when somebody is upset about what you wrote. It could be someone who's a character in your writing. It could be a public reaction. People can get angry. People can say, I didn't say that, I didn't do that. You made me look really bad. You put me in a bad light. You blackened my name. That's something you have to be prepared for. Same about framing yourself in a good or bad light. If you're writing and you make yourself look like an angel, you're just perfect in every way, people maybe remember it differently. Maybe, like we talked about last week, you try to make yourself look bad because you don't want to seem too confident and make people and turn people off, make them not like you. and other people will remember, oh, you were really good actually. And this is something, again, that you can change to manipulate things in a literary sense that are not actually true. And then the fine line between creative nonfiction and fiction. So much of what you're writing is like a novel, like a short story. There are themes, there are descriptions. Everything that comes through, if you're writing in the first person, it's your perspective. And something that's your perspective is always going to be different than the way other people see it. You can hurt people's reputations also. This is true in reporting, but same thing as having the backlash. You hurt someone's reputation, they can get really angry, they can retaliate. They could do something legally to say, my business or my name suffered because of what you did. So you have to be prepared for that. And like I was saying, it's not quite reporting. So fraud. Or is it? Oh, that was blank here. Here we go. So James Frey wrote this book, A Million Little Pieces. He's an author. This book was very, very successful. He wrote about being a drug addict and he recovered. I think he was doing heroin. I didn't read it, but it's a very famous case. This is a picture of him. A Million Little Pieces. Here's the book. It's a national bestseller. And here he is talking to Oprah. If you don't know who Oprah is, she's an American talk show host who is probably the most popular talk show host in history. She often had interviews with artists, with people on the street, just people who had interesting stories. And I never loved watching the show, but she seems like a really, really smart woman, a good TV personality. And she's so everyone has seen this show, and she's so popular that she has a book club, or a book of the month club, where she recommends a book every month, and A Million Little Pieces was on that list. If you get to be on Oprah's club, a book club, it means you will have success. It means people will read your book. She recommended this book, people read it, and then it turned out that a lot of what he wrote was a lie. There's a scene where he almost commits suicide in the book, and it turns out he never did that. He has these stories of overcoming addiction, but in fact, I think he was a drug addict, but his parents paid for him to go to a special rehabilitation spa, like a really expensive, nice hospital. So whereas other people really live on the street, he actually had a comparatively easy recovery from drug addiction. Oprah brought him on the show and shamed him and said, I can't believe you lied about this. This is totally unfair. I recommended this book. But his defense was, a lot of what I wrote was real. It seemed real to you. It seemed so real that you all didn't even know that I had made it up. And were you only reading this because it was a true story? If there was something powerful in my story, then that affected you, by saying it doesn't affect you because it didn't happen, it means that you're not being honest about whether or not you like this. Like, people were praising the book just because he had overcome this problem, and they felt bad for him. They felt sorry for him, not because he's a great writer. And then there's also this story, J.T. Leroy and Laura Albert. This writer wrote all these books about being the son or daughter of a prostitute in West Virginia, and all the abuse that he suffered, and became a very popular writer, made friends with a lot of celebrities, with Bono from U2, with Courtney Love, with the director Gus Van Sant, Winona Ryder. Kind of became this literary celebrity. And then eventually it was found out that this woman on the right, with the red hair, she was writing all of these stories, and she was being J.T. Leroy on the phone. And meanwhile, this person in the wig is her sister-in-law. It's her husband's sister. And the stories were completely made up. It was taken as nonfiction. People were really angry that they'd been tricked or something. But again, there must have been something in that writing that was good enough that made people believe it. So you have to ask yourself, how much can I do something that isn't totally exactly how it happened and get away with it, that there won't be consequences, and that is honest. Because people do get in trouble for lying, and they do get found out. Alright, so next we're going to go back into structure, move a little faster, but check out these stories. There's an Amazon documentary about J.T. Leroy that's really good, and I'll see you in the next video.